Good.
Oh, thank you very much. So today again we woke up to some very disturbing and quite exciting news that an individual calling himself Patrick Tembo Banda has declared himself as the president of the UPND. And in so declaring, he's taken advantage of the fact that the UPND structures have their mandate expired, and that in the presence of the expired mandate of the party structures, he has installed himself as the president of the UPND and has called for election of the UPND lower structures before they have their convention. Now this news comes in the light of what we have heard recently, that the UPND, in compliance with the Constitution, would like to call for a convention. And that call for the convention came after one of the members that put them under immense pressure to make sure that they comply as a party which is in power. We have some observations to make with this development. The first observation we'd like to make is just to give a word of caution to the government and to the Zambians and to even government institutions, that when you are applying the law, you must apply the law while paying attention to both the intended and the intended consequences for certain decisions that you are going to make. The country is aware that the UPND, rather the Patriotic Front, has been in court over its leadership for the past 4 years, and the courts have given a very lackluster reaction to the demand that the Patriotic Front has made to have its leadership restored. And unfortunately, what we received recently was a judgment that can only be classified as unjust. A judgment where even when Honorable Miles Sampa himself had admitted that he had organized a convention that did not comply with the PF Constitution, the court, on a reasoning that can't be convincing to anybody, made a finding that that convention was properly called, because among other reasons, the court found that at the time that Honorable Sampa was calling that convention, there was no central committee for the Patriotic Front. If Zambians had been following the events, at the time that Honorable Sampa was calling for that convention, he actually was suspended from the central committee. So if the court found that there was no central committee, by whom was Mayor Sampa suspended? But these are questions that we've been raising, and we've been talking about the need for the courts to be just and consistent in making decisions that affect especially the enjoyment of civil liberties and rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. Now, what you have seen in the case of Mr. Tembo Banda is a case of chickens coming back home to roost. The UPND possibly were thinking they were exempted from a turncoat within amongst themselves, deciding to take over the party and declare himself as a president. What has happened today is testimony of what happens in a country where the rule of law has been thrown out of the window, where people can just wake up and make decisions that affect the leadership of political organizations which are receptacles through which governance in the nation is undertaken. So what we're expecting now is that in the case of the chicken having coming back home to roost, we expect that UPND is going to handle Mr. Banda with civility, and they're not going to harm him. We expect that if they're going to raise the issue of the resolution of this dispute, they're going to do it in a manner that is more civil and not the way we know the UPND to do things, the way they do that. Most importantly, we have noticed that the police have already swung into action. We've been wondering why the police are using themselves as instruments of aggression in this country. Millennium Radio only provided a platform for Mr. Banda to air his views. And shortly after that, they actually offered an apology. But while we have learned that the government or the police has now visited, or they've gone to Millennium Radio in an inquest to try and find out what was transpiring, is something that we find very worrying. Freedom of the press is guaranteed by the Constitution. The only thing Millennium tried to do was to offer a platform on somebody who thought that they could actually become the leaders of a political party, which is amongst the many political parties which are going to contend for the elections in 2026 in August. Mr. Tembo Banda made his declaration very, very clear. He says, firstly, that the mandate of the management committee of the UPND has actually expired, so that correctly, there is no mandate amongst the people that are in the National Management Committee to do anything before they have their convention. Secondly, Mr. Tembo Banda has declared that he is calling for intra-party elections on the lower organs of the UPND. That clearly suggests from one of themselves as a member that the mandate of even the lower organs of the UPND have also expired. So we're expecting that UPND is going to be religious and they're going to be strict in compliance with the law. And they're going to make sure that they start with recreating the mandates of the lower organs before they can call a convention. These are a political party in power. What we expect from them is nothing less than life that is exemplary. They should show the Zambians that they're going to lead an exemplary life, firstly, by not harassing or haranguing Mr. Tembo Banda for what he has said, because he's exercising his rights as a member of the UPND. And secondly, that they are going to follow the directive that Mr. Banda has undertaken. Because you see, this case has actually been instigated by what has happened in the recent past. We are aware that a senior member of the UPND has taken the party to court for breaching their constitution by not recreating the mandates of the leadership. This is consistent with what Mr. Banda has done. We are hopeful that Zambians are going to open their eyes and begin to watch. The UPND has been going after other political parties. First, they've made it very difficult for the Patriotic Front to mobilize itself to an extent where the PF has now been fragmented in terms of political leadership in 3 ways. Now, they are trying to reach out to the FDD, even in matters that have nothing to do with elections. Matters that have everything to do with compliance with the Registry of Society. They're the ones who are in the forefront, sponsoring people to start questioning the convention that was held by the FDD. We are expectant that the Registry of Society is going to read the statute and he is going to have a clear understanding of what his responsibilities are. We know that the letter that has gone viral on social media has actually been sponsored. We have information that somebody, high-ranking has sponsored that letter. It didn't come from without, and if you saw the contents of that letter was written for that individual by somebody. But we are grateful that the FDD has responded by saying they're not going to pay attention to that, frustrating or provocative letter, because for them they're compliant with the law. We expect the Registry of Society to do exactly what is mandated to do under the law and not to entertain that letter. But most importantly, we expect that with what has now happened, where the chickens have come back home to roost in the UPND arena, the UPND is going to learn a lesson that you cannot be abusive of citizens and not expect certain events to come knocking on your doorsteps. Thank you very much.